Welcome to the SQLite app from start to finish course. This course is all about building an application that takes advantage of and uses SQLite. So let's get started with the introduction of the course. So what is this course? Well, this course is a real-world practice course that validates what you've learned in certain areas. So the expectation is that you learn certain topics. And in this case, there's a few topics. We'll cover what those are. But you learn these topics and have built little test applications, but never have really put it into a real world application. And that's something that you don't want to do for the first time in an application that you need to keep. Okay. So if you have this great idea for an application, that's not the first app you build, because otherwise what happens is you learn all those hard lessons by getting things wrong in that application. So this course is designed to teach you those hard lessons early on and get you practice in building a real world application, because the real world is not a tutorial. Tutorials just seem to easily fit together. But once you step outside those bounds, it's really hard to get those things to work. So this will validate what you've learned in certain areas, or it might shine a light on the fact that you didn't learn everything you needed to in certain areas. Okay? So what are we going to build in this course? Well, we're going to build an application called Bill Time. So what Bill Time is it's a little application for a consultant to use. And what they'll do is they'll use this to track the hours they work for a client. Okay, so you have a list of clients. They're going to say, okay, I'm going to work for this client, and this is the number of hours I worked. Here's what I did and when I did it. Okay, so that's what's going to track. Now, part of this is we'll have a list of clients. We'll have a list of payments clients have made to us and where they apply as far as which hours. And then we'll also have a list of the work we've done. So those all things are things that a consultant really needs. When you get into a job where you're programming something, you may not use the end product, but that doesn't matter. What matters is, can you get the job done? And this is one of those ways that you can test, can I get the job done? Now, these are the areas we're going to cover in this course. So these are the areas you should probably already be familiar with the basics of. So WPF. If you just know how to start and build a little bit of a WPF application, if you've done a couple of tutorials, then you should be set. Now, we're not going to use MVVM in this. This is going to be a small application, not a huge application. And so we've decided that MVVM just adds too much and doesn't give us enough in return for this small application. Now, we're going to use the common WPF controls. We're not going to go anywhere crazy or bring in third-party controls. Just the basic. We're going to use text boxes and text blocks. We're going to use combo boxes, check boxes, buttons, and a few other things, including the stack panel and the grid and a few other things. Okay. We're also going to use the menu bar. So we'll add that as well. Just the basics of the menu bar though. And then next, we're also going to use MDI forms in WPF. What that means is we're going to have one form for our entire project, but then we'll have what we'd call forms are actually just controls that we add to our main form. So that we can have one form, but add controls in, out as needed. Now, the big focus of this course is SQLite. So that's going to be a big part of this application. Of course, it's data driven. But as we're going to find out, once we set it up, there's not a lot to do with SQLite. It really is, it lives in the background in our DLL and just works. So we're going to cover that as well. Part of it is we'll create our database. So that's going to be something that you may want to see and you may want to work through in a real world type application. So we'll design it and then we'll build it. And then we're also going to do basic SQL commands. So things like select and insert and having where clauses and updates and deletes. So all of these will do to SQLite database. Okay. So we're going to do all of those. Now, one of the things we're also going to do is a very basic deployment. Now, by basic, I mean it's a zip file. We're not going to have an installer even, but this will allow us to move this to other locations, and with it, we'll take a blank copy of the database. So the question I get a lot for any of my courses is, what skill level is this course for? So this course it's going to teach most developers something. So it doesn't matter if you are a beginner through late intermediate, maybe even a little bit advanced, you'll probably learn something from this course. Okay? But I do want to say that you should have been introduced at least to WPF and SQLite. If you haven't, you can go to my YouTube channel on youtube.com/IamTimCorey and look for Intro to WPF and the Intro to SQLite. Okay? Watch those two videos and at least understand how they work before you start to use it in a real world application. So that's kind of the basics of what you need to do. But otherwise, as long as you can do those two things, then you should be good already and you're fine taking this course. Okay? So that's the introduction to this course. I hope you enjoy it. Now let's get started on the next lesson.